From Righteous to Villain. Chapter 51, Textbook. When I arrived back home at the bakery, the sun was beginning to set. By then, the rain had long since stopped, and the streets had returned to their usual bustle as people began emerging from their homes to do whatever they could before it was time to go to sleep. I expected more weird looks, but really, not many of the people passing by me bothered to think why I was holding an unconscious child in my arms while walking. Not that I would bother with explaining, it was good enough for me that Mira was going to live. When I entered the bakery, the front was dark, and the shutters were already drawn down. However, there was warmth inside, coming from the ovens that had probably been working an hour before. The accompanying smell of fresh goods reinforced this idea as I closed the door behind me and headed upstairs, where, to my surprise, everyone else was waiting. Lyra was wiping her arms, just finishing giving the kids bread and some cheese, clearly anxious, until she realized I had returned. The others, including Puck, leaned back in their chairs, wide-eyed and silent, looking at me and then at Mira, unsure if she was dead or not. I didn't speak right away, glancing at Puck, noticing that he was already looking better, although he had a running nose, the little bastard. The thought made me smile, and as I did so, I gave a slow nod, causing their eyes to light up. "It's fine," I said. "Mira's going to make it. But come on, let's get her to a room and let her rest." The air changed instantly within the bakery. The tension was gone, and it could be felt. Lyra let out a breath she'd clearly been holding for far too long and wiped at her eyes quickly, pretending she wasn't. Puck, even with her sore throat, cheered, while the other just slumped to the floor with a grin like they had just survived a war. One of the other girls, Salah being her name, whispered a prayer under her breath before hugging the others. "She's really okay?" Lyra asked, coming up to me and finally taking Mira out of my hands. "Clearly she's not dancing yet and probably won't run around after she wakes up. But yeah," I said, "she'll live." I didn't explain how, at least not now. I didn't need to anyway, not before the kids. The potion, the screams, the reshaping of her bones. Yeah, that was a story I could tell some other time. Or never. Of course, I would tell Lyra, but the kids? Nah, they don't need to know. "For now, all of you need to stay here," I added, my voice turning firm as I looked at Puck and the rest. "No runs, no watching the market, no errands unless I say so. Got it?" "But," Puck began speaking, but I cut him off. "We were targeted, for a brief moment. Stay on your butts." "Understood?" Yes." They all nodded in the end. "Good. Get back to eating, you little bastards." I chuckled, glancing at them one by one, "then get some sleep." When they returned to eating, I went with Lyra to put Mira to rest, and she stepped up to me after we closed the door to the small room. "You're not going to rest?" "In a bit," I said. "Let the kids finish and go to sleep. Then I can relax too. But first, we need to talk. Come on," I whispered, holding her hand without thinking and pulling her into our own room. It was, just as anything in this home, cramped but warm. Homey. I was fond of cozy little rooms anyway, so it didn't really bother me at all. Even if the bed wasn't much, tucked against the far wall, opposite a narrow desk stacked with notes, our day-to-day ledgers, and the occasional sweet wrapper I kept meaning to throw out when Lyra brought me something to snack on. I put a kettle on the small burner in the corner, lit it up, and decided to make some coffee. Its scent quickly filled up the room, and I was already starting to relax my mind. "I guess something did happen," Lyra said as she shut the door behind us and watched as I dropped the Murian book onto the desk with a dull thud while waiting for my brew to finish. "What's this?" "One of the happenings," I shrugged, sitting on the edge of our bed. "A book for potion making, straight from the Murians." "Never heard of them," Lyra muttered, no change in her expression. "Is it important?" "Kinda." I nodded with a smile, but I wasn't going to scare her with the book's origin. Maybe it was best if she didn't think about it too much. I know that if people realize something is hard, they can erect their own mental barriers just because of it. A fresh mind should be more useful this time around. Turns out, the token we were gifted came in super handy. This was part of that, and what saved Mira's life. "Does it have spells, runes, some weird enchantments that make it scream when you open it?" she kept asking, sounding amazed. She touched the cover, but was a bit apprehensive about opening it, only carefully fingering it. Good question, I smirked. Let's find out because I didn't open it yet. With that, I put my hands on hers and flipped it open before she could pull them away. Of course, there were no screams and no blinding light erupted from it. It was a book. Just smooth, aged parchment and neat, impossibly fine handwriting that ran down the page like water over stone, making me think about how artists write just to show off their skills. But, surprisingly, underneath each set of Murian writing, there was a neat, precise translation. I blinked my eyes in disbelief, leaning closer. The left-hand column was pure Murian script for sure, written in elegant and archaic cursive letters. But the right side, Common Tongue, is one that I could read. Line for line, there were not just direct translations, but full explanations and notes, addendums, and extra paper stitched to it that could be folded out, containing an even deeper exploration. The writer, the translator, had added supplements, clarification lines, and margin comments wherever he could. Some even included diagrams showing how to shape pressure, heat, and infusion rates, with lists of alternative solutions if some ingredients weren't possible to use. I recognized the structure. No way. This is a textbook, I muttered. A what? This is not just a formula book, it's a training manual, like the kind you'd find at a university. One that was used by a very diligent student. I traced a finger along the margin, reading the words. There's a progression detailed here. And then basics, then core principles, then compound variations. Whoever owned this book either wrote this for someone who had no idea what they were doing, or this documents an alchemist's road to becoming a master. Visibly excited, Lyra leaned in beside me, brushing her hair behind one ear, sitting down and snuggling up to me. After flicking through it a little, we found that the page we were on showed the preparation of a base stabilizer and a neutral suspension medium meant to preserve infused magical properties. The explanation attached to it broke down the process into 12 exact steps. Heating cycles, stirring rates, and anchoring with supplements that stabilized volatile reagents. "This is really clear," she murmured. "What do you mean?" I asked. Because, on the other hand, I was wholly lost in the details. This was way too complex. It reminds me of when I first tried to make my cinnamon chili twists, she said, tapping the margin notes. These temperatures here. That's how I tested glaze crystallization with ginger syrup. And that spiral stirring technique. I've done that. Not with potions, but when balancing caramel with lemon zest. I stared at her. "What?" she asked, suddenly blushing, our faces only a few centimeters apart. "Lyra," I said slowly, "you're telling me this reads like a recipe book to you?" She blushed even harder, clearly uncertain if I was teasing her. Kind of. Not all of it, of course. I'd need to test some of these steps a few times, for sure. But the logic? Yeah. It's how you work with unstable dough, or one that is made from subpar ingredients. Back home, I had to struggle with that a lot when we didn't have enough funds to afford quality yeast or something. When I had to deal with quick-reacting yeast, some ingredients don't blend, you see. They like unruly children, and they like to fight. You have to find the compromise. I leaned back a little, rubbing my jaw, looking back and forth between her and the book. This is exceptionally great news. No, this is supremely great news. "You think you could actually try this?" I asked, gulping down my excitement. "If we had the ingredients?" she asked back, looking at the page again, squinting, concentrating. "Maybe." She didn't sound arrogant. She was even unsure and nervous, but she didn't say no. "Good then." "There's a section missing, though," she added, flipping a few pages, interrupting me. "All these recipes reference things like red root resin or gossamer milk, or some that I can't even pronounce. But there's no explanation, Auriel. It's assuming we already have the knowledge." "Or a botanical codex." I nodded, seeing the issue here. "Yeah, I noticed that too." It made sense now. This book was meant to be part of a larger set, I guess. Maybe part of a curriculum. Whoever originally used it would have had access to not just the recipe book, but also catalogs, labs, and a mentor. This was just one book, and we had none of the others. Still, it is a start. We had this. "You know," I said, watching her eyes move over the text, Most people look at that kind of alchemy and run the other way. Well, as far as I gathered so far. Believe me, I would too. She snorted playfully. But if I have something so clearly detailed, it reads much more easily that way. Also, most people haven't tried making eggless meringue with heat-sensitive spices and 3 kinds of powdered sugar. I don't know what that means, but it sounds fair. I chuckled, happy to see that she also had a braver side to herself that was beginning to bloom. It was good to see. Beginning to think about how to get information about the ingredient part of our potion issue, I stood and paced the small room for a moment, considering my options. The book had been a gamble, not even my main goal, but that woman in Silverhaven pushed it on me. When I got it, I expected something cryptic, something that would take months to decode, if not years. So this was a pleasant surprise. Instead of gibberish, I had gotten a manual. I don't want you risking anything yet, I said, turning back toward her, not unless you're sure. I'm not sure of anything, she said, closing the book gently, but I want to try. If we can get the ingredients. This is potions, Auriel. I don't think we can do it without having the correct plants. I am glad you are this eager. I nodded, seeing her look away for a moment. I couldn't do anything for Mira, she continued, but if I can learn this, if I can make potions, then next time, maybe I can. I sat beside her, nodding slowly, taking her hands and patting them. We'll need to find out what those ingredients are. Get access to some kind of botanical registry. I know someone at the market who sells dried herbs, she said. She's old, half-blind, and says weird things like blessed by root water. But she knows her plants. She might be able to help. Ha, I laughed. But who cares? It is worth a shot. Do it quietly, though. We must not let any hint slip that we're working with Murian knowledge. Obviously, she said with a roll of her eyes. Seeing her do that, I laughed again. Suddenly, everything felt good, like a cork popping on a bottle sealed too long, ready to celebrate. I felt myself being fired up. Then I reached over and placed a hand on the book's cover. This thing's going to change everything. While you ask around with the half-crazy herbalist, once again, I'm about to visit the Adventurers Guild. Somehow, I am feeling lucky. Chapter 52. Brannick. It was a day later, right after Mira woke up, asking if she was in heaven or not. Of course, she was surprised she was alive, breaking into tears, having us console her all day long until she finally calmed down. As for questions, that could wait. First, let her recover mentally as best as she can, then I can ask her the question that I was thinking of. Walking down from the 2nd floor, the bakery smelled like cinnamon, as Lyra worked the ovens and prepared for the early morning rush. She had gotten up early again, no real surprise there, and was baking something that made my stomach rumble, wanting a bite of it. Upstairs, Mira was still asleep, along with Puck, who felt responsible for finding her and did not really want to let her out of sight right now. Good, I will have to make them work in pairs whenever they return to the streets. Shaking my head, I refocused my mind as I had a goal in mind, and it wasn't sweet rolls or organizing the kids' future schedules. Hungry? Lyra asked as she pulled up a tray that already had a rolled-up chocolate-covered bun on it. Take this if you are heading out. Thanks, I smiled, picked it up and bit into it. It was still warm and perfect. It was just, if you can make potions like this in the future. You mean putting effects into bread? She asked. But I thought she was joking. But of course she wasn't, and suddenly I couldn't tell if it was possible or not. Maybe someone already thought of it. Maybe not. Huh. I didn't mean that, but, I said honestly, tilting my head as I looked at her, if you think it can be done, why not? I don't know if it can be. Hey, I don't even know how to make a potion, she suddenly added, waving a finger at me. Sure. Well, I'm heading out, trying to find something that will let us test the recipes inside that book. What should I tell those who come for buying the freshest ones? She asked, using our simple lingo to sell information. Tell them we will be back in business in 3 days, and tell them you have a free piece ready already. I do? What? Tell them that the Crimson Ledger has attacked someone who had visited Silverhaven. For a moment, Lyra's eyes widened, but then she began thinking, biting her lower lip. Auriel, is this a good idea? I mean, it is not a lie. It is the truth, and it is information. A pretty big one if you ask me. But nobody can fault us for it. It is just the truth. I shrugged. Even if it was a risk, I was going to pay back the ledger. And I will start doing it now. Just tell them. Let them know it's free. Then they will know it can be spread. You'll see. Ha. Okay. She sighed, shaking her head and chasing away the worry. I'll do so. I will be back soon. I nodded, smiling at her, and then exited the bakery, heading to my target before the sun even rose above the horizon. The Adventurers Guild, compared to last time when it was raining, was already full of people handing the door to each other as they moved in and out. Entering the hall, it was filled with the mix of rough laughter, and somewhere in the back, someone had already started arguing over a botched contract with one of the tellers. I could pick it out. The pay was too low or something. With a shrug and a half smile, I weaved through the noise and the smelly people. Most of them barely glanced my way anymore, as I was a familiar face here, seen often helping the others out. Someone even stopped me, asking some questions, and to my own surprise, I could point them in the right direction, to the right contract on the wall. Damn. Am I actually working here now, or what? Back again? One of the receptionists asked with a raised brow as I reached the far end of the guild. Couldn't resist your charming faces, I shot back, examining his face, nodding toward Joran's empty station. Is he not in? He is. The receptionist pointed to the left, and as I leaned over the counter, I saw him in the back room. Of course, it was still early in the morning. With a hop, I vaulted over the counter, and nobody tried to stop me, and of course, he was already waving me over, a sandwich in one hand and a mug in the other. Don't tell me you're here for work again, he grunted after I walked in. You know we have an opening for desk duty. No, I did not know. I wasn't asking. I was offering. He chuckled, slurping on his coffee. I'd rather gargle acid, I replied, rolling my eyes and pinching the ridge of my nose. I like helping once in a while, but doing it as a job. I'm not insane enough. Come on, boy, it is not that bad, he muttered. So, how was it? He asked, keeping his voice low, closing the door so we could talk in private. It went fine. Just fine? He asked, trying not to push it too much, knowing that it may be something I can't talk about. But he did know where I went and that I was back. For now, let's just say I am here because I got in. Look, I need to talk ingredients, I said, and that made him blink. Ingredients? Joran leaned back slightly. You're serious? He asked, his voice rising a little as he scanned me up and down. I am. I need knowledge about the specific ingredients for potions, not potion recipes, but ingredients, descriptions, with pictures if possible. Damn. He made a face before biting on his sandwich. Right. So what's the angle? You switching careers to potion making now? No, probably not. But let's say I've got a drawing. I know the route, I know where the X is, but I'm missing the details of the map. It is still blank. Oh, I got it. Here, I pulled out a short note with some of the samples I had written down. I got a lot of old names for herbs, very much archaic stuff. I was hoping you'd point me towards someone or something who deals in herbal remedies. This is not a simple list, kid. Joran narrowed his eyes at the note, setting his mug down. I can't tell you if I know anything about these. Damn, I never heard anything like it. What are you trying to brew? Something that turns you into a god? Only if they come with a refund clause, I said dryly. No, this is serious. Can you help me? Maybe, he muttered. But Auriel, I need more. I may be able to help you, but I know the level we are talking about. I can send you to a place, but if what they sell is only good for giving back the morning stiffness to a cripple. Geez, Joran, do you think I would try to make Viagra with herb names like those? What's a Viagra? He asked, his first time hearing it. Never mind. Look, I need to figure out the rest. Some of the ingredients don't even match anything in current registries. So it is an ancient one, eh? Joran scratched at his chin, his eyes flashing. Sounds Murian. I didn't react, of course, but the second flicker in his eyes told me he caught the truth anyway. Look, we don't keep a catalogue of extinct or high-level ingredients, Auriel, but there's a guy, old crazy coot named Brannick. Lives near the East Wall Market, as far as I recall. He used to be a botanist before he spent too much time chewing firecaps and began talking to his plants. The last I heard, he swears half the herbs today are lies cooked up by bureaucrats, that the quality had fallen so far as to sell us cheap counterfeits, and that we should rebel against the system. He has gone totally cuckoo. Sounds nice. I grunted, making him chuckle. But he's got records. Old ones, kid. Not just that, he has maps, codices, and stuff even the guild doesn't have copies of. Is he trustworthy? I asked, already interested. No, but he's honest about being nuts, which is more than I can say for most vendors. Anyway, he may be genuine or a total hack. The thing is, I have nothing else. We can look for something, but… Noted, I said, shrugging. Thanks. Thank me after you get what you need. Will do. By the way, is there anyone in this city you don't know? Only the kind of people I don't want to do anything with. He answered with a chuckle, watching me leave. The East Wall Market was still in the middle of waking up when I arrived. The stalls and their tents were only half raised, and a pair of fruit sellers were arguing over stall space, being too close. Competition. Why not just sell different fruits? Anyway, ignoring the noise and the scent of strong spice and dried meat wafting through the wind, I followed Joran's directions until I found what could only be Brannick's place. Joran, you have got to be kidding me. I cursed under my breath. It was a crooked wooden shack squatting between a dye shop and a cart repair stall, its door hanging open like a broken jaw with a knocked-out front row of teeth. There was a tangle of vines hanging from the roof like a beard and a bundle of crazy-looking wind chimes made from old spoons. Brannick, I called out before entering, and it was a good thing I did. A pile of rags on a stool right next to the door shifted, and a man emerged from the rags, or what was left of one. He could easily play it off as a zombie. His beard looked older than the city, and his robes were stained with dirt, oil, wine, piss, and shit. Maybe, going by the smell, and his eyes, they were the unsettling color of rotting flesh. I told you this place is mine. Wait, no. Customer? In here? Really? He asked, one eye squinting suspiciously. I'm just here with some questions. Then you are trouble, he cackled, standing with a wobble. Well, whatever. Come, come. Step around the lavender, please. It's grumpy before noon. I don't know what that meant, but… I stepped carefully, brushing past drying herbs and a table covered in books, jars and scribbled notes written on what might have been old bread wrappers. To my surprise, it wasn't that stinky in here. It was mossy, earthy, but kinda relaxing. I'm looking for identifications, I said, focusing my thoughts. Old names for reagents. I've got a list. I pulled out the scribbled terms from the book, and Brannick snatched the note with a claw-like hand before I could react and scanned the paper, mumbling, red root. Not root at all. It's a mushroom. Bleeds red when split from the stern. Found near sulfur beds. Rare. Dangerous. No, no, no. You don't want it. Likes cursed soil. Gossamer milk. Spider secretions, but only from a breed long gone from the surface. It might still exist underground. Not here. Far away. Where? I asked, suddenly shocked he knew what they meant. Joran, are you really just a clerk? Underground, Brannick repeated as if I were the fool, looking at me scoldingly. You want exacts? Bring me a live one. No, I don't want extracts. I need the plants. Whatever. Look, anything still available in the city? Brannick picked through a crate, tossing things aside while mumbling, sometimes reading the short note I handed him. Finally, he produced a battered notebook, its cover stained with dozens of marks, but its spine looked intact. This is what you want. Old names, yes, yes. Cross-referenced with my own usage, church records, and even apothecary slang. My master's mania. I hated it. Celibate? Not for me. No, no, no. I like women. Just women don't like me. Anyway, it's not complete, but if you're serious, it'll help. What's the price? Brannick squinted. You got bread? Plenty, I answered, but I wasn't sure if he was asking about bread or money. And cinnamon? Yeah? Then bring me 6 twists and a promise not to mention my name to anyone from the guild. Hate them regulatory snobbish bastards. Humph. Um, I blinked my eyes, thinking this was simply too easy. Consider it done. Good, good, he hummed, pocketing the notebook and tapping his ragged robe. Go. Bring me my cinnamon buns. Make them juicy, squishy, squelchy squelch. Yum. Sure, I grimaced, listening to him smack his lips, and suddenly, I wasn't so sure anymore. Chapter 53, Boiling Rage. The main conference hall of the Crimson Ledger was unusually silent. There was no satisfied laughter of absorbing another smaller business or idle murmurs about the previous month's record-breaking profits. Instead, there was only the continuous, rhythmic and loud clanking of Garrick Holvar's ring against the blackwood table as he kept his index finger tapping against it. It was akin to a ticking time bomb, a countdown before everyone else present gets incinerated by his boiling rage. Around him, the inner circle of the ledger sat with apparent tension in their posture, each of them too well aware of the issue that had just arisen a few days ago, one that none of them could have foreseen. When the clicking of Garrick's finger stopped, every eye moved onto his hand, watching as he reached out for a box of cigars, picked one out, bit off its end, and lit it up while spitting the rest out. Taking it as a sign, Ivessa adjusted her spectacles, knowing that when the first puff leaves his mouth, hell will be let loose. Opposite her, Maris leaned back in her chair, arms folded, her gauntlets creaking, expecting the worst, while Auriel didn't even fidget with his silver coin this time around. The reason was simple. A courier delivered a sealed report yesterday. It did not even originate from one of their hidden agents, but from one of the simple paid watchers on the streets, the kind of people they used for the most basic rumor mills, and if they heard it from there first, it meant the problem had flown past all their professional spies and bribed officials. Which should not have happened, ever. Puffing out a big cloud of cigar smoke, Garrick opened the folded paper lying before him and read its contents out loudly so everyone present could understand the issue and hear it clearly. After this, there was no chance to deny that they didn't know about it. When he finished, the paper was crumpled in his fist, and his rage was simmering through his voice, forcing him to take a gulp and start over when he opened his mouth. No. Ugh. No one. No one was supposed to enter Silverhaven. How did this happen? Ivessa paled. The watchers we placed there missed it, Garrick growled, his eyes almost killing her with one glance. Why are we paying them? Pull those who were on duty to the main square and pluck their eyes out. At that moment, they all knew it. It wasn't a hyperbole. He ordered it to happen. Why is it that I got to learn about this from drunkards and street rats? The bribes didn't matter. Why are we paying the people around Silverhaven then? Someone entered that place, and we don't know who it was. We only know someone went in and out. Really? Fucking really? I don't care if it was raining. I am paying you motherfuckers to stand there in a blizzard and watch Silverhaven. The last sentences were shouted like a roaring dragon, echoing inside the room for a good few seconds more, almost cracking the windows behind the thick curtains. Well? Auriel swallowed, trying to find his words. We can't tell if the one entered. Got into the real Silverhaven, no? They do have a shop. No? He asked, looking around for confirmation. Are you stupid for a reason, or are you just born that way? Garrick snarled at him. I read you the report. Do I need to stab a new hole in your ear so you can hear it more clearly? Even Cedric, who was usually unreadable, shifted where he stood behind the circle of leaders, remaining silent until now. There was one thing in that letter that people began talking about a few days before, about how the ledger poked Silverhaven, which they thought to be a baseless rumor, probably started by someone hating them, or by the city lord, which seemed more and more valid by the day as the rumor kept spreading amongst every circle of life. Do we know what was taken out? Ivessa asked, not expecting anything, and she wasn't disappointed, unfortunately. We don't even know who went in, Garrick yelled at her, suddenly standing up and slamming the blackwood table with both hands, crushing his cigar into mush. Even the chandelier above them all trembled and began swaying back and forth. That's the problem, you stupid motherfuckers. Nobody was seen entering or exiting. No alarms went off at our end, which I ordered you all to make sure is there. I told you to monitor Silverhaven day and night. Yet that bastard Silverhaven's door was opened for someone to waltz in and come back out, and we didn't see it happen. By then, his face was redder than a bloody moon, actual smoke coming out from his nostrils, his chest heaving like an exhausted beast. He looked horrifying. Ivessa's hands trembled as she flicked through her notes, desperate for overlooked reports or some ignored patterns, anything to show. "This can't be a coincidence," she murmured. "The City Lord, he must be the one behind it. He has to be—" "Or someone he sent," Mary's muttered, trying to latch onto the idea. "Or," Cedric said evenly, but behind his tone he sounded a bit shaken. "Someone else entirely. Someone who doesn't want either side to know they were there." "No, that is the least possible option." Garrick's voice dropped low, becoming icy cold. "If someone like that came to the city, I would know about it. I agree that it has to be someone tied to the City Lord. And if the bastard is moving pieces this quietly, then it's worse than I predicted. We will have to react carefully and in a way that won't actually anger Silverhaven. The City Lord is also playing a dangerous game spreading this rumor," Rickard added, wiping sweat from his thick neck. "Using their name could also anger them, and if it is a baseless rumor, because we for sure did not do anything against Silverhaven, they may act, punishing the City Lord." "That would be the best outcome for us," Garrick's gaze cut across them. "Still, we should double every spy we have near Valcroft. Anything going in and out of his mansion, I want to hear it before his own damn advisors do." "We will do our best," Ivessa hesitated. "But if this is the City Lord, shouldn't we begin diverting blame? Put pressure elsewhere? He may have made the first move, but we can counterattack." "Not yet. First, we confirm how this happened. Then we move," Cedric advised. "A rumor like this very well may be his design to urge us into a hasty action. It very well may be just the bait before the actual trap." The table collectively exhaled, feeling a raging headache rising from their spine. "But it is just a rumor. A market whisper, nothing more," Rickard muttered. "That someone attacked by the Crimson Ledger had ties to Silverhaven. Who would take that seriously? If that happened, wouldn't we already be dealt with?" "Ridiculous, yes," Ivessa agreed. "On paper, no one would believe." "On paper." Cedric's voice sliced through her sentence, silencing the woman. "But someone starting the belief is all that the City Lord needs. It will find its place, and it will grow. We have plenty of enemies who would propagate the rumor just to get back at us. The issue is not the local guilds and merchants. We control most of them anyway. We will find ourselves in a tight spot outside of the city when the rumors spread there, and our foreign partners begin dropping deals with us just to be cautious." "Wait," Auriel exclaimed suddenly. "Could this be about that girl? The one you tortured?" he asked. "The urchin. It's about her, isn't it?" "You are stupid." Garrick stared at nothing for a moment before looking at him. No, it's not. Who the fuck would care about a worthless trash? A street cockroach. Do you know how many little bastards are being pushed out of whore wombs in this city? And then thrown to the streets? Please, nobody cares about them, especially not Silverhaven." "But," Auriel insisted, "she is the closest to fit these obscene rumors. That's our only connection to anything attack-related. And the timing fits." "Yes, but she's nobody," Ivessa argued, agreeing with Garrick. "An urchin. A disposable tool for both us, the City Lord, and Silverhaven. She has no money, no power, no bloodline, no worth. Silverhaven doesn't waste time on gutter trash." "Unless," Cedric said quietly. The tables turned to him, including Garrick, waiting for his gaze to focus again. "No, I just can't see a connection. But I will look into it. After all, I was the one who killed her." A long, terrible silence followed, until Garrick spoke again. "Was she dead?" "Cedric, was she dead when you dumped her body?" he asked again, and the ex-adventurer looked at him straight in the eye. "I didn't check, but even if she wasn't, the water would have done it. I broke her. Nothing could have revived that doll, not even Silverhaven." "Are we sure?" Mary's asked, her voice very low and deathly grim. "If Silverhaven is involved, if we touched one of their runners, then we've misread the board entirely." "No," Garrick snapped. "This isn't them. The girl wasn't theirs either. No way. If this rumor started, it came from inside the fucking city lord's palace. Listening, everyone was unsure, and they could feel that Garrick's own words were uncertain about it. But he had to believe in that, instead of entertaining the idea that they indeed poked Silverhaven. Someone, he continued, his voice rising again, either in our ranks, brushing too close to the city lord, wanting to switch sides, or one of the remnants of our old enemies, had to make this. My bet is on the damned Verin brothers that they got a match lit under our damn house. He turned toward the wall, slamming his fist into a locked cabinet, breaking off its door and tearing it out along with its hinges. Inside were rows of documents, profiles, their associated agents, couriers, bought merchants from and outside the city, and lastly, all their informants. Start digging. He threw everything on the table, scattering it around the air and the ground. All of you, I want to know who spoke to whom in the last 3 months, and about what. Even if their talking points were about how their dicks burn, sticking it to a cheap whore. I want to know who interacted with Silverhaven when the last open auction was held. Who got paid from an untraceable source for anything that was sold. I want names and connections. I want every whisper turned into reports, checked, double-checked, and then compiled for me by yesterday. Got it. And if it wasn't one of us? Cedric asked. Then it will prove that it was him, Garrick growled. Valcroft, but first we must clean house. I think it has to be him and not us. He had let the rumor spread, Ivessa said, nodding grimly, to see how we'd react. For now, we react with silence, Garrick ordered. We do not react by attacking. We seal every mouth that talks about it amongst our ranks first, and we deny it all second. We then start our own rumors that it's just an overt attack on us, and we scrub the riverbanks. Make sure we find the remains of that girl. I want to see her corpse, and no more bodies until we find her. He warned them, especially Cedric, looking at him. Find the leak. Find the source of this fucking rumor. Cedric nodded and nodded only once, his eyes cold. Yes, I will. Chapter 54, Disappeared. Cedric Malvern. He couldn't help but curse under his breath as he wandered for hours, getting way far outside the city. For more than 30 years, he had tracked bleeding prey across kingdoms, through the land of beastfolk, and even treaded the forests under the elven rule. He had retrieved the heads of targets for kings and erased whole noble lineages in silence to complete a contract. Something that was why he had to leave the Adventurers Guild when they got too close, sniffing after the bloody trail he had left behind. Yet today, he couldn't find one measly corpse. Usually, not even the rivers could hide anything from him. They can wash away the filth and blood, but bodies floated and bones got snagged. But today the river refused to yield any success, and Cedric was slowly being forced to realize there was nothing to find. At the moment, he was crouching beside the bank, down south to the city, his boots sinking into the mud. A retinue of silent men, part of the Ledger's enforcers, waited behind him with shovels and spades, instructed to dig until the shoreline was flayed bare. They were already hitting solid rock. But nothing. Well, almost nothing. He found bodies, yes, 2 bloated smugglers still wearing their tattered clothes, and one of them having solid gold teeth. Then there was a runner from a local gang that he faintly recalled as they used them to do some dirty work outside of the city. This one's throat was cut, wrists broken, signs of intense interrogation before death. There was even a child's hand stuck into his rags, half eaten by fish. But no, it was not hers. He would have remembered the girl he broke, and this one was not his handiwork. None of the finds were ones that he had dumped into the water like a sack of kitchen waste, and he was running out of possibilities. Could it be? Cedric's eyes narrowed at the thought as he watched the river as if it had personally insulted him. No, that was a bad joke. Period. We expand the search south, follow the current, go into any village you come across, any inlet. If she washed ashore, someone might have found her and given her a burial. And if they buried her? The man asked. Why do you even ask? Cedric turned, murder in his eyes, making the man step hurriedly. Then dig her up. Understood? Yes, the others yelled, dispersing, leaving behind an upturned riverbank, leaving Cedric behind. Something was wrong with him. A feeling was swirling in his mind, one that he had not felt for more than 50 years. It was not fear, but a sense of imbalance. That was what he told himself, that it was coming from the possibility that she lived a blemish on his profession and on his record. A little slut like her surviving. Impossible. He shook his head, suppressing his thoughts. That is simply impossible. On the same day, far away from the running river, within the halls of Silverhaven, Celine sipped tea that tasted faintly of peaches, humming to herself, her eyes closed, and enjoying the aroma of her favorite drink. At the same time, her servants moved silently around her, adjusting curtains and cataloguing big stacks of folders in her office. Of course, none of them dared speak unless spoken to, doing their jobs in complete silence. All except for the old man in the corner with legs that ended in sharp talons instead of feet, rhythmically knocking on the stone floor like a cuckoo clock. He was a half-blind and half-blooded librarian named Velin, who usually stayed within the halls, organizing the auctions whenever Silverhaven announced one. "Are you listening to me, or am I talking to the walls again?" Velin adjusted his monocle, the knocking of his talons stopping. "I heard you," Celine chuckled, opening one of her eyes just barely and looking at him. "I just dislike your sour face, old man." "Rumors suggest the Crimson Ledger may have attacked someone with ties to Silverhaven," he repeated, ignoring her remark. "We can't let such rumors spread." Celine raised an eyebrow, pausing mid-sip. "Why not?" "They are panicking," Velin replied, a bit stumped at her question. "Isn't that obvious?" "It is," Celine chuckled, sitting up a bit straighter but still holding her cup, sipping on it. "But they are panicking over a ghost rumor, no? How flattering. They fear it might be true." "Of course they do," she said, reaching for her teapot, refilling her empty cup, and taking a deep breath of the rising steam. "When you don't understand power, you attribute it to shadows. How quaint. How stupid. We can't let it play out. It would affect our image." "No, it won't." Celine waved a hand, signaling that the topic was now considered dismissed. "And it is partially true. The boy had a token when the incident happened. Want it or not, it makes the rumor into somewhat true." She smiled, making Velin shiver, as when she did it like this, he couldn't help but see Celine as a fox and not as a human. "I like the boy." Good thinking on his part. And it doesn't push too far to get annoying. "I see." Velin turned a page, remaining calm. "Well, Garrick Holvar has tripled his surveillance near Lord Valcroft's estate, probably related to the first issue. He thinks Valcroft sent someone." She laughed. "Poor Garrick. For someone who fancies himself a kingmaker, he dances marvelously when poked with a stick. What do you think? If I stepped behind him, knocking on his left shoulder, would he see me as I dodged to the right, or remain just as blind as now?" "I don't know," Velin answered, not wanting to follow her thoughts, "but this is why. Please consider. Shall I issue a correction? Clarify that we were not involved?" "I told you to drop it," Celine repeated, raising her voice a little but then calming down quickly. "Absolutely not." She grinned, her eyes glittering. "Let them tremble. Let them suspect everyone. We will not interfere. It is a good little run-up for our next auction." "About that?" "We might have an issue," Velin muttered, gulping. "What issue?" Selena asked, genuinely sounding surprised by the news. "The one who contacted us, the one who told us about the stolen elven artifact. He is dead. We were too late on the scene. The caravan was ambushed by then, and the artifact was stolen." "And?" Selena asked, her tone tinged with annoyance. "Are you telling me we can't find it?" "Really?" "We found it, but once again, we were a step behind. Who has it?" By now, Selena was sitting straight, looking straight at Velin. No more playfulness in her eyes, just cold, straight business. "It was found by the guild in Corvar. Well, a bandit gang found it and fought with the local guild leaders over it. For now, I don't think the guild is aware that this is why they lost their top operatives in that region. Make it so they don't find out. I don't want the old diaper-wearing idiots to get it before us. We already smoothed over the possible clues, so they should not discover the truth." "Then what is the issue?" Celine asked, his brows furrowed, showing deep lines on her forehead. "The city lord." Valcroft, she asked, visibly shocked. How the hell does he come into play? Someone tipped him off. Velin shrugged, fixing his monocle. He got into Corvar ahead of us. By the time our operatives get to the scene, he has already pocketed the key. What key? The artifact is still lost to us, Velin explained quietly. But they captured the last known human who had it, a woman named Risa. At the moment, she is being brought back here. Well, this is complicated. Selina chuckled, shaking her head. Get someone into the city lord's estate. Do not interfere until the artifact shows up. I like Valcroft. Even if he ends up having it, he is more than likely to sell it to us. Ha! Damned elves. All of their stuff is cursed. And you want it? Velin shrugged, shaking his head. Why live if you refuse to have some excitement in your life? Selina asked, laughing, returning to her drink, already back in a good mood. After my first solo outing from Velgrada, I was finally back just as dusk slipped through the buildings of the city. Of course, I wasn't going far, just around the nearby forest, following that crazy bastard's instructions and the notes and images in his book. Getting some ingredient replacements. I hope he is right, and the ones I gathered could make up for those that we wouldn't be able to get our hands on anymore. Thinking about just that, I pushed open the bakery door with one hand and held the wrapped bundle in the other. I was back home, and it felt nice. The moment I was in, the scent of cinnamon and rising dough hit me in the face, making my stomach rumble. It was the noise that made Lyra look up from kneading a batch of something sticky and sweet, wiping flour from her cheek. You're late, she smiled. No wonder you are hungry. I am not going to deny that, I chuckled. But as you can see, I succeeded. Well, I brought something, I explained, tapping the package. I just hope the herbal nutter Brannick has enough sanity not to dupe us. Don't call him that, Lyra sighed. Poor man. I don't know if I would pity him, I said, putting the bag onto one of the empty tables, closing the door and locking it. I do. She pouted. Anyway, I am making some more of the things he asked for. You should bring them to him tomorrow. Yeah, sure. Where are the kids? I asked while I was carefully unwrapping the bundle. They are upstairs with Puck, playing with Mira. She has a good appetite, so she is indeed recovered. She smiled, making me smile too. But only a little, as it also means that soon I will have to start asking her some questions. So, how is it? She asked, standing beside me, looking at the hall. No idea, I answered honestly, looking at the ginseng-like vines I collected, a bundle of red flowers and a few shavings of a certain kind of tree's bark. If you had asked me without any prior knowledge, I would have said that these were nothing but something a crazy hobo would collect. Maybe even give them names and play with them like action figures, or sell them as the secret ingredient to eternal life. Hell if I know. Is it good? Lyra asked, picking up one of the flowers and examining it. As I said, I moaned, pulling out the book we traded for. I turned a page and then another, trying to find the hand-drawn images and comparing them to what I brought back. You tell me. I put it down, showing it to her. It does look the same, she muttered, holding it next to the drawing. It kinda looks like what we needed. Half of the terms matched the Murian script. Half, I reminded her, but she was much more optimistic. It will be fine. She smiled at me. I will try to prepare them as if they were in his book. In the meantime, you can take another batch of sweets to him and ask for some tips. It will be my first time making a potion. It would be nice if he had some advice for an amateur. Okay, I sighed, shaking my head. We've come this far already. We can go all in, I guess. Chapter 55, Acting. It was a difficult night. I was putting this day off as long as possible, but I couldn't wait any more. I stood at the edge of the upstairs room, one hand resting on the doorframe, watching Mira as she sat on the far side of the bed, legs tucked beneath her like a cat trying to look as small as possible, wanting to remain invisible. She was hugging a pillow to her chest, eyes unfocused and looking far away, knowing exactly what I meant when I said we would need to talk. Her face, her entire composure, changed immediately. And I wasn't blaming her for it. Of course, I had sent the others downstairs and told them gently but firmly to let us talk in peace. Lyra nodded, understanding it, taking the others down with her, though it didn't stop her from glancing back at Mira 3 times before finally disappearing down the stairs. She was worried, but bottling it all up wouldn't be good either. I know. When they were gone, I stepped in, closing the door behind me, and then crossed the room slowly, not wanting to scare her. She was indeed like a little kitten, flinching when I sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to crowd her mind or suddenly very sensitive senses. "I'm sorry, Mira," I said quietly, "but we must talk about it. Even if you don't want to, I have to ask you some questions." "I know," Mira whispered, surprising me because her voice wasn't shaking, or she could hide it well. "I know. I need to. I was just unsure when you would ask it. It was good not remembering it for a while." "I understand," I nodded, reaching out and gently taking her hand, patting it. "How did it happen? Can you recall?" "I was running the job you gave me, the one with the green-colored seal marking it as interesting information. You remember the one?" "I did. I have already looked up and memorized the ones we sent out when she went missing. Her run was for a mid-tier client, nothing flashy really. The buyer had paid well enough but insisted on discretion. Looking back at the notes, he had purchased information about a warehouse transaction in the Canal District, on a bit of a smuggling operation going under the noses of two small-time businesses." "Yeah, go on." I nodded. "It was fine." Mira took a deep breath, her eyes closing, furrowing her brows, and I could feel her palms beginning to sweat. "I delivered it just like you said. I arrived at the spot where I was supposed to hand over the container to the client, near the bridge where the broken lanterns were located." But, I asked, gently giving her a squeeze and nudging her to continue. "There was a man there, tall, bald. He wore a black coat and had a short beard. I think, yes. He also had a scar across his nose. He said he was picking it up for his master." She recalled, telling it with a now audibly shaking voice. "I didn't think much of it. It wouldn't be the first time the client sent his own people, so I took the coin and gave the message over to him." "Anything else?" I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm, trying to keep her calm, at least for now. "Did you see which direction he came from?" "North, I think," she muttered, furrowing her brows even harder, "from the alley that goes toward the main market square." She muttered, searching her memory. "He looked at me too long, though. It felt like it. As if he were trying to remember my face, memorize it. That's when I started to feel weird. I kept my face still, but inside a sick twist formed in my stomach. That wasn't just a drop, but that was a trap set for her. For us. That man was never the real client, nor was he probably one who worked for him. He was the bait, plain and simple, or the collector, or both." "And what happened after you left the drop point?" I asked. "I made it about 3 blocks," Mira said, her voice quieting by a large margin, becoming a whisper. "I felt like I was being followed, so I tried to change course, as you taught us." She trembled, her eyes still kept closed while speaking. "I used one of the back alleys near the slums. That's when someone grabbed me. They threw a bag over my head, pulling it close, so much so that it choked me out. When I regained consciousness, my hands were tied. I'm not sure if it was the same man. Sorry," she added, finally opening her eyes and looking at me. "It doesn't matter." I smiled at her, looking into her eyes and stroking her small hand. "Do you remember anything about where they took you? Sounds? Smells?" "Nothing much." She shook her head slowly. "By the time I woke up, I was somewhere. It smelled like mold. Wet wood. And blood. I think it was underground. I couldn't hear the city anymore. There was just dripping water. Chains. A lot of chains. I think I was in a basement, maybe a warehouse basement." She tried, her eyes unfocused, all of those days' senses returning to her. However much she hurt, though. I didn't interrupt. I just let her keep talking. I had to. There was only one man there. He kept me tied up to a chair or something. He asked who I worked for. When I said nothing, he asked who I carried messages for. I lied. I said it was just random jobs. Street runners pick up whatever they can find. He didn't believe me. "I see." I was about to ask if she could describe the man who hurt her, but she beat me to it. "He was in black." She murmured, her fingers tightened around mine, painfully so. He smelled like rusty iron, like old swords that I sometimes find in the sewers. He wore thick black gloves. He didn't yell. His voice was always smooth and calm. Deep. He had short hair. No. It was tied up, I think. And it was dark, but I think he had black. Or brown. Black hair. No beard. While she continued talking, I moved closer slowly and placed a hand on her shoulders, gently pulling her into a hug. She kept speaking, returning to that moment, falling into a weird, trance-like state. He broke 2 of my fingers first, she said, her voice cracking painfully for the first time. Then he pulled a knife. He cut my leg just a little. Kept saying things like, "You're too small to matter, so talk now, and maybe you'll stay useful." But I didn't. I didn't say your name. I didn't. "Shh, it's okay. I know," I said softly, reaching out to stroke her head. Then he hit me. Many times. Again. And again. I think I blacked out. But he didn't let me because he put something in me that woke me up in the dark. After that, I couldn't feel my legs. My face was... It hurt. It hurt. I thought I was going to die there. He kept asking the questions, telling me if I said it, it would be over. But I knew he was lying. He enjoyed it. I saw it. She started to cry, and I wasn't surprised. Not asking her to continue, I pulled her gently into my arms, letting her cry into my chest. I didn't say anything, as nothing would really mean anything, so I just held her, fingers brushing through her hair, letting her work through it and let it all out. It lasted for a very long time, but when the sobs finally faded, she just stayed there, resting against me. Her breathing was uneven, but the worst of the storm had passed, and her body was slowly beginning to relax. I could feel how it turned from that fear-induced stiffness back into something much more lax. "You did well," I whispered to her, "and you're safe now. You're strong, Mira, stronger than any of us. Don't worry, they won't get you here, and be sure that we will catch the guy. He will be punished. Severely." She didn't respond, but she nodded slowly against my chest, letting out a quiet sigh of relief. Eventually, I helped her sit back again, propping her against the pillows. She looked exhausted, yet lighter, both in her posture and in her eyes. Speaking about it, it had purged some of the poison from her chest, lessening the chance of having a heart attack. "One more thing," I said gently. "Can you describe that first man again, the one you handed the message to?" She did, of course, and I committed it to memory. Although I won't be able to get to the one who tortured her, I can start there. I still have a client who would be a great example of what happens when someone thinks they can cross us. As for what I would do to him, I don't know yet, but I'm sure to send a proper message. One that the city won't forget for a long time. Standing up, I left her with a blanket after I tucked her in carefully. Before I opened the door, I looked back, smiling a little. She was already asleep, which seemed to be a good sign. I just hoped she wouldn't have nightmares. Well, even if she does, Puck and the others should be up here and console her if anything like that happens. "She okay?" Coming downstairs, Lyra looked up immediately, watching the kids rush past me while I nodded. "She will be," I hummed. Then I leaned closer after we were left alone. "Keep an eye on her tonight. Just in case." "Of course, but..." Lyra narrowed her eyes, looking at me. "You're not staying?" "No, I have a clue to follow up on, and it is best to be quick about it." She opened her mouth, but then she closed it as she didn't ask more. "I'll be fine." I chuckled before patting her head. The night air was cold, and it helped cool me down a little as I moved quickly, heading towards the compound of Veron and Sons. By now, I had literally been given a 24-hour access pass, so I didn't even need to stop at the gate. I was let in. I was also in luck because I could see some light escaping the main building, so after I knocked, it took only a little while before the latch clicked, the door creaking open to reveal Marcus wrapped in a robe. He was yawning, rubbing one eye, trying to focus. He was either about to go to sleep, or he was already asleep. My bad, then. "Auriel," he muttered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Is something wrong?" "I wouldn't have come if it weren't," I sighed a little, which seemed to sober him up. "There is something about to happen. I came to warn you ahead of time. I lied to him, because it may affect you. What is going on? He asked, surprised. Let's get inside first, I answered quickly, not wanting to say it right away, as I was still developing the story in my mind. I can't come to them asking for information. That was my job description. I had to go the roundabout way, or they could recognize that I, or Shade, was really not as great as they thought. I should have become an actor, or so I felt at that moment. Sure, Marcus's tired expression hardened immediately, and he stepped aside to let me in. Give me a moment to wake the others. The interior where I was led this time around was more like a proper living room. It was warm and smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax from the thick candelabra, the one that held the light source I saw from the outside. I stayed near the entryway as Marcus climbed the stairs at the back and roused his brother and son. A few minutes later, the three of them were gathered in the sitting room, holding half cups of strong tea and waiting for my explanation, not exactly happy to be woken up so late into the night. Sorry, but it is just about to go down. I didn't waste time crafting the scenario. The girl you helped us save, Mira. We now know how she was taken, and it was a trap. Someone ordered information through our channels and then intercepted the courier for the exact reason of getting a lead on Shade. The ledger, Marcus set his cup down, eyes narrowing. It has to be them. Yes, I nodded, but then continued, wanting to sound like I was warning them of possible fallout that may come soon. Or an opportunity. But they worked through an intermediary. The first one is a man, an insignificant adventurer. I guessed as the description mostly fit one of those types. He was bald, with a short beard and a scar across the nose. Big build, broad-shouldered. Tsk. Vice, he always finds himself in trouble. Willem, Marcus's brother, grunted. If you are friends, best if you stay clear of him, I added, warning Willem, which made him stiffen, drawing his eyes away from mine. Good. So far so good, because I now have a name too. Nothing like that, Willem continued. He is a bottom-feeder adventurer at best. He has been around for years, amounting to nothing, only working shit jobs. As far as I know, he runs with a small crew that takes low-end escort or warehouse guard jobs. Nothing flashy. Sometimes they take postings from the smaller merchant syndicates when the guild's prices are too high. I remember him because he once got drunk and tried to stiff us on a rental. He grimaced. Still owes us 5 silver. What? He asked, gulping, seeing me still looking at him, saying nothing. I was just simply memorizing it, but... Oops. We know, I said softly, finally blinking and leaning back. Oh, sure. Sure. He blushed, realizing he was rambling because he was suddenly afraid Shade would think they worked together or were connected. Where would I find him? I asked, adding quickly, we have multiple of his hideouts, but if you can narrow it down to one... Yes. Willem nodded. Last I heard, he bunked around the east dockside near the tavern called the Broken Whistle. He and his group sometimes work out of there after he had lost his previous house while playing cards. That one. I see. Thanks. I nodded, committing it to memory, and then told them the name that requested the information from us in the first place. Stay away from Tonelvec, for now. The gondola guy, Relen, Marcus's son, yelled out, making me look at him, and I wanted to laugh so badly. Tonelvec. Fucking idiot. Did you use your actual name? I expected it to draw no reaction from them when I mentioned it, but no. Wait, it may be an alias. If it is a fat, greasy bastard who always tried to sneak in extra charges, holding a chicken wing in one hand and oiling his balding head, trying to smooth the side hair he has over the spot with the other, then yeah, it is him. I didn't know that part, but Lyra mentioned that there was a customer once who asked if our bread goes well with roasted chicken, and by her description, it was a greasy old fat fuck. I can pay him a visit and double-check it then. Just be prepared. I stood up, having what I came for. I can double-check the information within the Adventurers Guild next. We will be... They nodded, seeing that I was leaving already. Watching the light in their eyes, I knew they indeed took it as a friendly warning. And an opportunity. I could tell that Marcus already thought that maybe after the dust settled, there will be an empty spot to move into the gondola-owning business. Chapter 56. Kill. The guild was quiet at this hour when I entered through the main doors. No wonder nobody stopped me, as it was late enough for the main area to be emptied out. Along with the silence came the dim light as the fire in the central pit had burned down to a low, flickering red, barely illuminating the place. I nodded to the sleepy clerk from the night shift at the front desk and kept walking. Hey, he barely registered me with his eyes, but at least he didn't make a fuss. Fortunately, most of the workers were already accustomed to my face, and I could pop in and out at any random hour. That was the advantage of coming here whenever I needed something, and the fact that I helped out even with tasks most people wouldn't want to do, sometimes even staying late. After getting past the only hurdle that there could be, I passed through the eastern counters, swiping the keys from where they were usually left, and headed forward into the archives. The back rooms weren't truly guarded. The guild liked to pretend its records were secure, but that was only true for missions above a certain rank. The middle and low-level stuff, mostly with bronze-ranked adventurers and their documents, those were as easily accessible as nobody really cared about them. With my goal set, I flipped past the bounty ledgers, past the record of completed quests, and toward the drawer labeled as the active, unaligned, low-risk, low-pay section at the back. Precisely the kind of category someone like Garen Weiss would fall into. Pulling open the drawer, I grumbled a little as no one alphabetized properly anymore, but I found him a few folders deep nonetheless. No adventurer, even if they were unregistered, was actually unregistered. Most jobs went through the guild, and sometimes there is no other job but one through them, so there had to be some helpful information here. I don't want to jump him without knowing what to expect. Let's see. Garen Weiss, age 37, bald. There were no pictures, but at least there were further descriptions for the records. There it is, a scar on his nasal bridge, possibly burn-related. Let's see what else. Affiliation. Freelance. Possible relation. A small four-man company, locally known as the Nails. Addendum. Unregistered name, marked for extra fees if requests for registration are ever to be presented. Possible rank. Bronze tier. At least I got the right guy. Is there more? Yes, there was, after flipping the pages. Known associates. Rallo Vint, Nessa Kell, and Don Bregg. Names for later if I need them, I suppose. As for the last page, mental evaluation, reliable when sober, avoid when not. He tends toward aggression when abusing his vices, pressured or left unpaid. Has had 2 official complaints filed for excessive use of force against non-targets during guild-related assignments. I was about to close the document when I noticed another sheet beneath it, stuck to it, which made me pause. Prying it off slowly so as not to tear the paper, I found an official report form. It seems that fate is on my side because it was about how a certain gondola owner who had hired Garen skimped out on the pay. It was a complaint form, submitted with awful handwriting, probably belonging to Garen himself. I tried reading the names he included, but they were smudged, and I don't think this paper was intended for documentation at all. Multiple essential parts were left blank from the outset, such as the name of the issuer, the dates it was taken, and proof of completion, among others. Only the supposed payment part was filled out, which consisted of a handful of gold coins. Sure, buddy, sure. So he takes shady work and submits forms when he gets swindled. This is a grade-A idiot. Well, it wasn't anything significant, but it was enough of a connection for me to ensure I was on the right track, and there should be no real surprises. Copying the important parts, including the extra names, just in case, I slid the rest back and then relocked the cabinet. I left through the same side corridor I had entered, walking casually. Nobody stopped me, not that I expected it to happen. Outside, a kind of mist had settled low over the streets, making me smile a little as, once again, everything was coming into place for me tonight. I now have the confirmation of my first target. So, let's meet him. It is time I leave a message. The broken whistle was nothing more than a rotted 2-story husk of an old house tucked between an abandoned smokehouse and the remnants of a collapsed warehouse. I'm not sure if anyone had the right to operate a business in a place like this. Not even that. It's the kind of place where rats outnumber the customers. but there was nobody here, probably because the type of dregs who come here were working at night. Not that I was complaining. It made it easier for me to get to where I wanted to be. I found Vase's place behind a warped door at the backside of the tavern, leading to the basement, protected with a broken latch and a rusting iron handle. I checked the door first, and of course it was locked, which also meant that he wasn't home. That was fine, good even. It wasn't a lock that was anything serious. So only by fidgeting with it a few times as I managed to force it open, and then I was in. It was a pigsty at best, a rotting pigsty at worst. Rusted or rotting floorboards, I couldn't tell. Dirty clothes, dirty mattress, and a ceiling that was falling apart. I wondered how no patrons from above had fallen through into his room yet. Well, no matter. I pulled myself together, hiding behind the hanging clothes in the dark at the corner opposite the door, making sure that my hood was covering my face and my scarf hid the rest of my face. I waited. Time passed slowly, and it was hard to focus with the smell of sweat, piss, and whatever else that was inside this shithole. But probably only an hour later, voices drifted up from the street below. Someone shouting. They entered the tavern, or at least they tried. I guess it was still closed because they shouted even more, banging at the door. Then, the crash of a bottle. Someone is angry, huh? I kept listening as the footsteps, with a drunken stagger, got closer. But it was not only one set. No. There were two people. It didn't take long for the door to open, and the dim light coming in from the outside was enough to make me see who it was. Finally, you bastard. Garen stumbled in, clearly in a good mood, drunk as hell, laughing through his nose, his shirt half unbuttoned. The second figure was that of a woman who followed behind him, her heels clicking loudly against the warped boards on the floor. Well, girl, I hope he paid you well for this round. But judging by her torn, cheap-looking clothes, she was the type that was just as bad as Garen. I couldn't gauge her age, but she was looking rough, with hair in a mess and splotched skin, and her expression was also showing that she was clearly using something hard besides alcohol. No matter, I watched as they shut the door and made it barely 2 steps into the room before falling against the wall in a tangle of hands and teeth. I almost felt mine tingle with how loudly they bumped into each other. Brr. He groped her, already going beneath her clothes, not that it was hard, because one flick alone exposed everything the woman had. She giggled, one of the torn sandals she was wearing falling off with a thunk. He cursed about something, trying to unbuckle his belt while she bit his neck, making him groan again. Honestly, they were pigs, all right. Sloppy and drugged out of their mind. They didn't make it to the cot, of course. They collapsed onto a pile of dirty clothes, grunting and groaning as Garen began humping her without actually even hitting the mark at first. Not that the desperate bastard cared about it, continuing, repeating that he had good money to spend now, and he would fuck her good. We'll see about that, buddy. Taking a breath, I slowly pulled out the short sword strapped to my side. A man is most vulnerable when he is reaching the top. Be happy, Garen. Be glad I let you enjoy your last time. As his breathing turned sharp and uneven the moment he stiffened, I stepped forward from the shadows. I didn't hesitate. I decided the moment I knew they betrayed us and caused Mira to get tortured, they were going to die. No mercy and no second chances. I let everyone off the hook in the past, never confronting them. Fuck that, with a capital F. My blade pressed coldly against the back of his neck just as he thrust forward and gasped, his pleasure quickly turning into horror. The girl didn't even register what was happening, totally out of her mind, moaning and asking for more. Don't move, I said, my voice masked behind my pulled-up scarf, making sure only my eyes could be seen if anything. Either of you. Or you die. The bastard froze first, which probably caused him to shrink down at a record speed. Whatever it was, finally the woman recognized that they were not alone beneath him anymore, a small whimper escaping her throat. Her eyes widened, even though they were already wide beyond reason, staring up at me in a mix of drugged and drunken haze. I saw the moment she registered the sword, knowing if I pressed it through, it would probably end up in her chest. Sucks to be you. But at least fear is a good antidote against being stoned out of your mind. I don't have money, Garen stammered, trying to move, but the moment he did, I pressed down, letting the tip of my blade enter under his skin, drawing blood. He gave up on it very fast. If this is a rob— It's not, I interrupted him. Speak again without answering my questions. Try to move, or any other games, and you'll be dead before you blink. Silence. Except for the woman's rising, panicked breathing. Who sent you to intercept the girl? I asked, my voice coming out colder than I have ever known I could be capable of. Start talking. I know you know. Your last job, Garen. Do I need to say more, or should I press into you and make this into a threesome? Finally, he swallowed and began speaking, knowing he couldn't bullshit me. It was just a pickup, he stammered, trying to turn his head, but I pressed the blade harder again, making him moan, but not in pleasure. Somebody paid for a simple job, that is all. I was supposed to collect the parcel, that's all. I know nothing more. Don't lie to me, you marked her. He flinched again, and as I redrew my blade, just a little, he began speaking. They told me to— It was just a job. I paid with a scented coin, I think. Trackable by a dog. I didn't know who she was, I swear. I was told to use the coin and then vanish. I'm not into trafficking people, especially little girls. Yet you still did it, I snorted. Who gave the coin? I asked, wanting to ensure I was targeting the right people. It was— He winced as I moved my sword into his neck again for hesitating to give away the name. Tonelvek. He said it was for someone higher up and that he was just the intermediary. I usually do things for him when he wants them off the record. Sometimes the fucker doesn't pay, but this time he did it in advance, so I just took the damned coin and made sure she was paid with it. He was panicking now, and he thought there was still a way out. Are you lying to me? No, it is the truth, I swear. I believe you, I whispered, and as I pulled the sword away, I saw his body relax. If you want, I can arrange a meeting with— He started to bargain, thinking there was business to make now, but not for long. I grabbed his hair, pulling his head back while I shifted the blade and drew it cleanly across his throat, slitting it wide open. The next moment, a wet gasp escaped him, gurgling and clawing at his neck in horror. The woman screamed, but not for long, as blood poured straight into her face, forcing her to close her mouth. With that, I let go of his head and watched as he twitched once or twice while he collapsed atop her, convulsing, gurgling, and then going slack. By then she shoved at him, shaking, trying to clean her face and eyes, thinking she would be next, but I didn't raise the sword again. Easy, I told her calmly. He's not your concern anymore. She stared at me, soaked in blood, trembling yet paralyzed with terror and shock at the same time. She watched as I carved an S into the bastard's back, big enough not to be missed. After I was done, I just opened the door, stepped out, and left. Because there was one more man I intended to visit tonight. Chapter 57. No Mercy. The city felt different at night. Most of the noise softened, the lights dimmed, and the streets turned. Unrecognizable. Or maybe it was just my perception, given what I had just done. Probably the latter. The strange thing is, I didn't feel anything guilt-related. Or just not yet. Somehow, that didn't seem right. I was fine. It wasn't my first time to take a life since I got here, but it was for sure the first time to do it in this way. But remembering what was done to one of my people, I felt vindicated. Maybe I am just trying to explain it to my conscience. So I stopped. It was done. No reason to argue with myself. Right now, I stood across the narrow street from this Tonelvek's home. It was hidden by the cover of a brickwork arch that went over a quiet alley. The place itself wasn't grand, but it was clearly above average. The man was running a gondola business after all, so he had a fine place to stay and work from. Upon closer inspection, the building was a two-story structure, with lacquered wood facing the front of the street and bright lanterns hanging outside that flickered intensely due to the oil-lit wicks inside. Coming in from the front was a no-go. Too bright and too obvious. Probably there was a guard inside too. So, examining it further, I was looking for a secondary entrance. The building was part of a larger residential row, with 4 tightly packed homes sharing an expansive courtyard in the back, which was evident after taking a few rounds around the block. But the bastards had its own gated entry and a nameplate affixed by the door. And to top it off, a man was posted at the gate leading to his backyard access. From my vantage point, he looked to be an adventurer, clearly. He wasn't standing in parade posture, as professional guards did, but he was alert. Judging from here, he had a lean build, one shoulder against the wall, the other hand resting close to the hilt of his blade. Too bad that he wasn't drunk or tired either. Ha! At least for his home, he was hiring someone competent. But it also made this more complicated for me. I could kill him and get in, but too risky. Too many variables. For a few long minutes, I just watched, thinking. My instincts, or the instincts of this version of me, didn't try to scream at me. My heart didn't pound either. So it was doable. I was simply working out how, and that's when it happened. Something inside me stirred as I was trying to come up with a method. It was not a memory, not an emotion per se, but a type of familiarity. My breathing slowed slightly, and the way my eyes tracked movement narrowed without me having to think about it. Then my mind recognized what I had missed so far, bringing it forward from the back of my mind and giving me an idea. Auriel, the original one, had done this before. I was sure of that. I had to scale things before. No wonder. So, the plan formed in my mind, quick and efficient. The adjacent building was lower by a single floor and had a runoff pipe that connected to a slanted overhang between them. From there, I could cross onto the tiled edge of Vec's roof. I had already noticed one of the upper windows to his place was open, ajar just enough for me to reach from there. Probably someone forgot to close it entirely, or it was hot inside and he needed some fresh air. Or perhaps they liked the breeze. Doesn't matter. Either way, I was going in from the top. I pulled back from the alley, retreating into the darkest part of the block, circling around the house until I found the right building. It was a disused bathhouse, I guess. From the boards covering its windows, it was clear that the building had been closed for a long time, with the front door chained shut, but the side wall was still accessible. Cracked stone and faded hanging struts provided a minor hold for me as I made my way to the top. There, it was the runoff pipe that mattered. If it cracks when I grab it, that would be a loud crash, landing me on the ground. So I tested it first. The old copper was corroded in places, but it was steady enough. Good thing I wasn't exactly the heavy type. Oh well, let's do this. Gripping it, I began to climb over. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't good either. Touching it felt nasty, and I had to be careful not to cut myself and get an infection or something, or just crack it and fall down. But it worked, and I caught myself enjoying the exercise, as if I was missing things like this. My body knew when to tense and when to relax, how to shift weight without overbalancing, and ensure I wasn't stressing it beyond its limits. My fingers knew how to hold onto it without slipping, despite it being wet. I was like a monkey, or Spider-Man. I almost laughed. However, once atop the overhang, I pulled myself up and crouched low and made my way across the lip toward Vec's building. I was almost there. The tile beneath me was slick from the rain we had, but I moved like a cat, careful, quiet, and managed to keep myself from falling down. I could see the adventurer below now, idly shifting his weight, rotating his neck with a faint crack. People tend not to look up. I will have to remind myself of that fault. Lucky me, he remained unaware of my presence because of it. Good. With that, I continued, and I crept to the upper window, third from the front. I'd marked it earlier in my mind, remembering it clearly, and because it was slightly open, I could slip my fingers under it and slide it further up, so I could worm myself in. It's a good thing that there was no creak when I did so. Thank God for well-oiled hinges. With that, I slid inside like water through a crack, first sticking one foot, then the other, and then I landed softly on a wooden floor. Maybe I was trained to be an assassin, I asked myself while I looked around. The room was a study. I could smell it, the ink, the smell of paper and parchment, with the faint musk of, probably furniture polish. No one was inside, only a dimly lit, dying oil lamp. Taking a step, I leaned over a desk that was cluttered with correspondence letters in the middle of being written. Was he still up? and just out for a snack or to take a piss? Because if so, I had to hurry. Looking around, I saw a rack of keys and rings on the far wall. I ignored them for now, but I should swipe them after I'm done here. Then, just as I moved, I heard something, making me drop into a crouching form, trying to determine where it was coming from. The voices floated up from below as far as I could tell. They were muffled, indistinct. One of them was deeper, with a bit of a lisp, and spiced up with a nasally sounding haughtiness. By the way he spoke, it had to be tonal. As for the other, probably a servant or perhaps a woman. Didn't matter, after all. I exhaled slowly, keeping my heartbeat steady. Not wanting to make much noise, I moved across the study, slowly opening the door and slipping out into a narrow hallway beyond it. The house was well maintained, so there were no creaking boards that gave away the movement, and a surprise waiting for the owner. Just like that, I reached and descended the spiral stairs in silence. I could see into the main foyer from my vantage point. I was right, Tonal Vec was there. He was dressed in a thick silk shirt, his bald head gleaming from fresh oil or sweat, maybe both. His gut pressed against a broad belt that clearly hadn't been tightened in years. Trying to hold on to dear life, he held a goblet of wine in one hand and was gesturing to someone out of sight. Probably a maid, as the voices I was hearing now were much clearer, and his voice was making me shiver. It was, ugh, I had a boss like him before. I could tell he was smug just from his tone, how he formed the words even with his heavy lisp. I could tell he was complacent, telling his maid that the wine he had come down to get was not chilled enough, and to be happy he doesn't flog people for it. I would say enjoy that drink, but if not, that's fine too. Go to hell with a disappointed sip then. Thinking about that, I pulled back, retreating to the second floor, as it would be best to kill him here when he waddles up here. Maybe do it in the stairway. His fat body could get stuck after I am done with him, giving a natural barrier for anyone coming up from below. Heh heh heh. But I didn't come here to kill him just yet. I had to learn anything I could about his connections. I wanted to ensure that the Crimson Ledger receives the message, while I also know more about them when I'm done here. And, deep down, I wanted him to feel the same fear that he had caused. I waited at the top of the stairs, hidden away, out of the light of the lamps, waiting for him to wobble lazily upward from the room below. His cadence was slow, and I could hear his heavy breathing, fighting to climb the stars or fighting to get himself fit into it in the first place. Vec, grunting as he got up to the top, turned with a loud moan, wiping sweat from his floppy head. By the time he would know what happened, I was already in motion. Before he could yelp, my right hand drove the blade forward and pressed it just barely beneath his triple chin, pushing it enough to split the fat flabs open but not be deadly. Good. He got the memo as he froze instantly. I could see his body stiffen through the fat rolls under his silk shirt. Scream and you die, I said, keeping my voice as low as possible. Blink wrong and I'll bleed you like a pig you are. Understand? He nodded, grunting like a hog. His eyes were wide now, bloodshot and glistening with a sudden spike of panic. His hands were shaking, one still holding the goblet of wine, spilling it everywhere, unable to keep it straight. He sucked in air like a drowning man, eyes darting across the hall, looking for escape, but there was nowhere to go. Not that he would be able to with the speed he was capable of. You know why I'm here, I began. He opened his mouth, about to speak, but I raised one hand and curled two fingers in warning. Mind your tone. I ask a question, you answer it. Nothing else. No deflecting, no sowing a tale, no shouting. Understood? His lips closed after I finished, and he blinked his eyes, then nodded again. First, something easy. I smiled, but he couldn't see it behind my scarf. I was trying to gauge if he was about to lie to me or not with my first question. Who ordered you? And don't play dumb. You know you took an order recently. I dash. He paused. I saw the moment he weighed his answer. He was making up a lie, but then I saw the flicker in his eyes. He was going for it. I watched as he inhaled, as if in slow motion. He was going to scream. My eyes registered all the clues, the movement of his fat body, banking on the fact that I wouldn't be fast enough or his fat would be a shield until help arrived. He was reaching for it, but I had my own reflex and my arm moved on its own. The sword drove through not his neck, but I twisted it and sent it through the underside of his jaw in a smooth, arcing thrust, punching clean through the roof of his mouth and into his skull. I didn't want him to succeed. A wet pop echoed through the hall as bone cracked, and the blade emerged through the top of his bald scalp, with pieces of his brain stuck to it. In the end, his scream never reached the outside. I watched as he jerked once, eyes rolling back, then his legs kicked out. Then stillness. Blood pooled down over the clothes he was wearing. It soaked into his shirt, down into his cup that he then dropped. Clang. Shit. I pulled the sword out fast and stepped back, letting his body crumple to the floor on top of the cup, not letting it roll down the stairs and make more noise. I clenched my teeth and turned, stepping quickly to the study door, half expecting footsteps to pound up the stairs. Then my escape would be from the window I came in. But nobody came. Silence. No shouts, no steps. Still, I waited. 10 seconds. 20. A whole minute. Nothing. I was safe. Realizing it, I exhaled slowly, wiped the blade clean on his sleeve, then slid it back into the sheath. God damn it. I wanted answers, actual names, maybe paper trails. But the idiot made the decision for me, and my body reacted faster than my mind could stop it. Shaking my head, I stared at him, slumped over the floor for a moment. A trickle of blood was still leaking from the crown of his head, running along the curved grain of the polished wood like a red river, heading directly towards the staircase. Oh well, maybe there were still things to find. So instead of gawking at my second kill tonight, I hurried back to the study after leaving an S-shaped mark on him. I wasn't about to spend a lot of time searching, so I swiped everything that looked useful. Notes, books, keys, logbooks, anything I could carry. Then I left through the window through which I came in. It was a long night, and I think I deserve a hot bath and some relaxation. Chapter 58, Intimate. The door creaked open even though I tried to push it open softly. Doing my best to remain quiet, I slipped inside, locking it behind me without looking. As I expected, the bakery was silent. Everyone was probably asleep already, as it was the darkest hour of the night. Good. I was not in the mood to explain everything, and I was unsure if I looked, well, normal. I did kill 2 men tonight, in pretty much cold blood, so I wasn't sure what kind of expression I was having right now. Yet, as I stepped past the counter toward the stairway leading to the second floor, I saw it. There was candlelight coming down from above. It was a soft golden hue as it leaked down, and after climbing the stairs with its creaky steps, I recognized it was coming from the bathroom. I even heard water being sloshed in the wooden tub we had. Huh. So someone was up. Just as I asked myself that question, the door opened a little and Lyra came out. To my surprise, she wasn't startled, not even slightly. She just looked at me with kind eyes, her hair hanging behind her in a braid, her sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her hands were wet, and her face was calming. She looked over me once, nodding before inclining her head, signing to me to get into the bathroom. "The water's ready," she whispered softly. "I figured you'd be back around this time." I blinked, surprised. "Lyra—" She didn't let me finish, though. Instead, she stepped closer, reached up to unhook the clasp of my hood, then gently pulled the cloak off my shoulders. She moved as if she had done it multiple times already, her fingers grazing the edge of my collar as she slid it free, folding it in one fluid motion and setting it aside. Next, she took off the coat, which had become somewhat stiff from the dried moisture on the rooftops. Then she took off my belt, my gloves, my sword, and in the end, everything. And I was so taken aback that I just let her do it. She was silent, efficient, and did it without hesitation. I watched her the entire time, trying to find even the slightest tremble in her hands. But there was none. Finally, when she got to my boots, she paused, and in the soft light, I could see a smear of dark red stain on the leather. Looking up, her eyes met mine briefly, but only for confirmation that the blood was not mine. When she read it out of my eyes, there was no judgment, no flinch, just a quiet, relieved sigh as she reached for them. "You tracked a bit in," she murmured, looking behind me. And true, I did. "It's all right. I'll handle it." She unlaced them carefully, making me lift one foot at a time, then carried the boots away without another word. I stood there barefoot in the hallway, stripped down to my shirt and trousers, watching her disappear downstairs with blood-stained leather in her hands as if it were nothing more than flour on a cloth. In the end, she returned with a small towel in one hand and pointed to the tub. "Go," she said, looking at me weirdly why I didn't get into it already. "The water's hot. I heated it up for you. Don't let it get cold. Shoo, shoo." I didn't argue, but I was flabbergasted. It felt foreign, alien. It was even weirder to experience this than my rebirth. Sitting down on the rim, I unbuttoned my shirt, peeled it away, and noticed that it was sticking to me from the sweat I hadn't realized was accumulating on my skin. Throwing it down, I slid slowly into the water. Ah, it was great. The heat bit into my skin at first, feeling sharp but in a good way, making me hiss through my teeth. I leaned back against the curve of the tub and closed my eyes, thinking back, not to what I did, but to Lyra. It was the first time I had experienced caring on this level. Honestly speaking, this meant more to me than she realized. It really did. It felt more intimate than a kiss or anything more explicit. As I relaxed, thinking and enjoying the bath, I opened my eyes again, and to my shock, she was there, looking at me. I wasn't sure what to do or to hide anything or not, so I didn't really do anything. She, on the other hand, was busy, as she had brought a small plate of food, a warm roll, a bowl of thick stew, and a cup of sweetened tea. Huh. Watching her, she placed it on the nearby stool and pulled up a chair, folding her hands in her lap. "You didn't have to wait," I said quietly, trying to initiate a conversation or something. "Maybe," she shrugged, "but I wanted to." "You didn't have to do any of this." I continued, but she just picked up a spoonful and began feeding me. "I wanted to," she repeated, firmer this time. "That makes a difference." "Yeah, true." I stared at her for a moment, really looking at her while she fed me. She was younger than I, yes. Well, I don't know how old this Auriel was, but she was probably still older than her. But why would it be an issue? Was I searching subconsciously for a reason not to get into a relationship because of how they were previously? I couldn't think of any other reason. And after tonight, honestly, she wasn't clinging to some fantasy, nor did she try to get me to talk in a shrill voice, asking, what did I do? She also refused to lecture or engage in any worthless discussion about what I did. I was sure that she knew what I had done, perhaps not every detail, but she had gathered enough clues to understand. And still, here she was, hand-feeding me. "I don't deserve you," I muttered, my honest thought escaping my mouth. "Ha!" She gave a soft snort, blushing and giggling. "You don't get to decide that." "Oh," I smiled. "Fair, fair, I concede." I would like that if you do. We are stuck together anyway, aren't we?" Seems like." I nodded, and she was right. Then, after the food was gone, she stood up again, gathering my shirt and the trousers I'd stepped out of. Holding them up, she examined them, checking the cuffs and edges, and picked up a wash basin. "These too," she added. "I'll take care of them." "I can do it." "You're not moving from that tub until you are relaxed and get sparkling clean." She looked down at me, then her eyes moved and lingered a little, because I wasn't covering myself. "I am not cuddling you if you smell." Then she was gone again. "Roger that," I murmured, looking after her. By the time she returned, I was done scrubbing myself with the lavender-smelling soap, and she just sat there with me, sipping her own cup of tea while I soaked. The silence between us was soft and comfortable. I studied her posture, the way she leaned onto the chair's arm, her ankle crossed over her knee, like a woman entirely at ease, unlike how she was when we first met. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Why what?" She flinched, blinking her eyes, coming out of her own thoughts. "I don't know." I looked down, furrowing my brows. Why did I ask that? I honestly don't. I just... What was it that I wanted to ask? I really didn't know. Maybe she knew because she took a long breath before answering. "Because I chose you, Auriel. It is that easy. I don't know where I would be now if not for you. So, I will stay with you. Through all of it, no matter what. Isn't that enough?" "Of course." I looked away into the steam. "It's just... it'll get worse." I know, she chuckled, getting out of the chair and kneeling beside the tub, turning my head back to face her. She was so close that our noses almost touched. You could be in danger. I already am, she said, matter of fact, but I'm not stupid. I've made peace with it the moment we left Corvar. Then let's seal it, I said, looking into her eyes, and then she leaned in and we kissed. It was long, soft, yet passionate. It was the best kiss of my life. When we parted, eventually, I stood from the tub and dried off, dressing in the fresh pajamas she'd brought in without my noticing. As I did so, Lyra stood up too and gently brushed a damp strand of hair away from my temple. You go and sleep now, she said gently. It is getting close to morning, so I will need to start preparing the bread and… No, I answered, grabbing hold of her hand, pulling her close to me, moving my arm around her waist. There was something about… cuddling. There was… She stuttered for the first time, going red in the face. I told you, I want to seal it with you. Or, you don't want to… I do, she answered, her voice surprisingly loud all of a sudden, making her look around, afraid she had woken up the kids. Yes. I want to… Good. I smiled, maybe a bit too widely as I snuggled her. Come. Baking can wait. Plus, we can be closed tomorrow. For now, I want to… cuddle with you. Until morning. It was already bright outside by the time I began waking up. I hadn't meant to stay in bed this long, but my body, for once, didn't argue with the stillness. It felt good, so it was not an issue to stay in bed, especially because Lyra lay tucked closely against me, her head resting on my chest, her arm lazily draped across me, while I could caress her back and hair under the sheets. Looking down, I could see her bare legs sticking out at one side, while her scent drifted up to my nostrils. It was soft, faintly sweet, a really pleasant and relaxing smell. Probably noticing me moving, she shifted faintly, wincing a little, trying to open her eyes. She murmured, only half awake, pressing herself against me. Good morning, I whispered, looking down at her. Her brows furrowed for a moment, but then she relaxed again, and an honest big smile spread across her lips. She didn't say anything at first, just pressed her face against me, giggling, looking so happy that it was contagious. When she did speak, it was with a hint of self-consciousness in her laughter. I can't move my hips, she whispered. Bad boy. Yeah, sorry about that, I said, chuckling. I might have gotten carried away. But you didn't say no. I wouldn't. She pouted playfully. And you better be sorry, she mumbled into my chest. Because if I walk funny downstairs, the kids will never let me live it down, asking questions, and I don't know what to say to that. Well, true, I muttered while I glanced past her and noticed the faint streak of blood on the lower part of the bedsheet, already dried. Instead of saying anything more, I just wrapped my arm around her more and let her rest her head fully against me. At once, she melted into me, and instead of feeling shy, she was visibly proud. You're shining, I murmured, letting strands of her hair run through my fingers. Of course I am, she nodded without shame. I got what I wanted. Am I a prize? Why am I? She bit my shoulder lightly and playfully. Let me enjoy this. I can't sit down for a week. Okay, no need to dramatize it, I began, but we didn't get far into more teasing as we both froze. Footsteps, and not just one pair. Are you awake? When the door opened, it was Puck who stuck his head in, probably hearing us talking. At first glance, he was clearly worried, probably wondering why we hadn't left the room yet. Why aren't you guys up yet? You're never up this late. Damn, I just thought of him saying that. Are you okay? From my position, I had just enough line of sight to see the door crack open further, and sure enough, Mira's face poked through just behind him, followed by multiple other voices asking what's going on. Her brows lifted immediately when she saw us. Her eyes flicked across the scene, with us in the center, the tousled sheets, the bare shoulders and legs, the faint bloodied mark. Her mouth twitched at once in understanding. It was just then that Puck took another step forward, tugging at the doorframe. I think there's blood, he whispered. Did something happen to… Before he could finish, Mira's hand closed around the back of his collar and yanked him gently but firmly, pulling him away. Nope, she said, voice perfectly even. Absolutely nothing's wrong. But, Puck, listen to me, it's fine. He paused, and then his eyes widened as Mira leaned in and whispered something into his ear. I couldn't hear it, but whatever she said made his face go red and his mouth form a small O. Damn it, we are busted. Well, I almost laughed out loud seeing it play out. Mira turned her head back to us, her expression amused, as she looked at Lyra first, who only buried her face again into my neck, groaning softly, not wanting to show herself for the end of time after today. And then she met my eyes. I'll keep the others occupied, she said simply. You two just rest. And then, with the ease of someone being in complete control, she spun on her heel and began shepherding Puck, and what sounded like two other curious heads away from the door, muttering something about grown-ups needing privacy and everyone better shut up unless they wanted to mop the entire bakery floor. She knows, Lyra whispered into my collarbone when they were gone. Oh, she definitely knows, I said, rubbing her back. She's going to tease me for years. That's your burden now, I smirked. No, it's our... Don't slink away from responsibility. Okay, I smiled, holding her chin up to kiss her. Better? A bit. But I may need more. Greedy, I whispered, but I wasn't refusing her request, and leaned forward. It was one of the best mornings I have ever experienced. And I mean it. Chapter 59, Misunderstanding. Murder and death were not new things inside Velgrada. If someone had paid just the smallest of attention, it was pretty much a daily occurrence, especially among the city's lowlifes. Robberies, whether successful or not, may stem from rivalry or just a stupid accident. It happened more often than one might think. But the bodies that were found, there was something more going on. Although nobody could directly tell what, the clues were pretty apparent. By the time the second body turned up with the carved S in his flesh of the fat gondola merchant, the Crimson Ledger's mood had shifted from fury to dread. By then, the rumors had become more than just street gossip. They were directly implicating them. The first corpse belonged to Garen Weiss, and although he was a low-tier nobody with many problems, it could have been discarded as nothing. His death wouldn't even make the news as people like him disappear all the time. Unfortunately for the ledger, another body was discovered with the same letter carved into the body, and this one had a cleaner name. Tonal Vec. Yes, he wasn't a big name, just a simple gondola operator, or in his case, the owner of multiple gondolas, running them and renting them out. But he had influence around his own little circle. It was well known that he had taken many jobs from the ledger, even boasting about their relationship and bullying other gondola owners to sell or become his employees. Still, even if that was the case alone, this wouldn't have been a big story. The issue was, there was a previous one spreading, just before the apparent murders, which transformed them into messages. The rumors had already painted the prelude, suggesting that the ledger had stepped on the toes of Silverhaven. An S, left on two bodies, one who was close to the Crimson Ledger. Sometimes people didn't really need any proof to start spinning their own tales, and by the afternoon, it was talked about everywhere. After all, everyone had an opinion about Silverhaven, even if they had never even walked into their building. That just simply further fueled their wild imagination, giving an even bigger punch to the tales people began adding to the mysterious killings. And the mistake was easy to make, especially because Silverhaven never issued any declarations either. Just like always, just like any time anything happened in the city, they remained silent, above the issues of the regular people. Except for the two letters on the two corpses, and even if in reality they represented Auriel's alias as Shade, the city didn't know that name that well yet. It wasn't on the Crimson Ledger's level either, and they wouldn't even think about it when receiving the news. All they saw was the letter, and all they heard were the stories being told at every corner shop. As a result, it wasn't a surprise that in the primary conference room of the Crimson Ledger's headquarters, behind the double-locked doors, panic had finally begun to appear amongst the board members. Their current, hastily called meeting was unlike any they had before, as actual fear was evident in some of their eyes. At the head of the table sat Garrick, as usual trying his best not to yell when he had to speak. It made his breathing slow, coming through flaring nostrils, looking like a boiling bull. One finger resting on the rim of a half-drunk glass of hard liquor, doing his best not to crack it. It seems that we're being hunted, Maris said first, breaking the silence, knowing that if nobody spoke, Garrick would blow his top sooner or later. I personally went out and visited the sites. That part of the rumor is true. 2 men, she continued, looking at the others. One of them being affiliated with us. The other, which is most likely connected indirectly, is not the type we employ because it is too risky to deal with addicts like him. So my conjecture is that he was probably employed by the one named Tunnel. Also, both died in their own homes and got an S carved into their bodies. Who was dealing with Tunnel? Garrick asked, prompting Maris to quickly sift through the papers. One of our subsidiaries. They are responsible for organizing our usual potion smuggling runs, and Tunnel was a reliable and relatively cheap option, giving us a bigger profit margin. Especially after he extended his reach. It was a win-win relationship until now. He knew his place, Cedric muttered. He was a bastard, but he feared us. It always made him predictable and usable. Garrick didn't say anything, simply raising his glass, taking a sip, letting the ice in it knock together, waiting for the others to continue. And both markings, Ivessa added quietly, adjusting her glasses. I examined them on the corpses. It is the same handwriting with the same precision. It was done by the same killer with the same weapon. Then say it, Garrick rasped, the glass under his finger suddenly cracking but not shattering yet. Out loud. Ivessa hesitated at first, looking at the others, but then she obeyed, not wanting to make him wait more than necessary. Someone is pretending to be Silverhaven. Or worse, someone from Silverhaven is actually sending a message. The former would be the preferable outcome, and they were hoping it was the case. But if it is the latter, that could be catastrophic, but even then, there may still be time to do something against it. To amend things. It was probably why even Garrick didn't explode, managing to sit on his temper for now. He just stared at the tabletop, his gaze fixed and distant, thinking about how to go and approach Silverhaven. He can't just go and ask, because if it is them, they would take it as an insult. Shouldn't it be clear? Who else would dare use the same moniker? But if it isn't them, then what? Is he accusing them? No, asking them directly was out of the question. This is madness, Rickard muttered, wiping his sweat-beaded forehead, jolting Garrick out of his thoughts. We didn't touch Silverhaven. We've never dealt with them directly anyway. They only deal with people at their auctions. I don't even know if they have agents in the city. Do they? Would they be worthless nobodies? Really? It shouldn't be them, Cedric said evenly, his face looking as if it had grown older by a decade, and his eyes were baggy, red, with thick black bags under them, like someone on their way to death. And there's no fire on our doorstep. If it were Silverhaven, we would be dead already. It could still be a warning, Garrick muttered, finally raising his cracked glass, emptying it. We have to take this as if we hurt someone we shouldn't have. It can't be the girl, Auriel said, barely above a whisper, looking at Cedric first. She was nothing, no name, no papers, just an orphan street rat. Was she? If you want to accuse me of something, do it, Cedric snorted, making Auriel smile a little. Of course not. I just want to be sure. She wasn't theirs. Wasn't with Silverhaven. They don't care about dregs. Cedric leaned forward now, hands resting on the table. So stop it, Auriel, or I will gut you like a pig. You don't understand how Silverhaven works, you failed sadist. Rickard grunted, eyeing Cedric with malice. It's not about bloodlines, and for Silverhaven it's not about money. It's about favors, debts, and honoring promises. What do you want to get to? Cedric looked at him, his eyes twitching, his lips quavering from anger. Speak cleanly. You think someone called one in? I think someone with a connection used them, yes. Rickard didn't blink when answering, his gaze turning towards Garrick. We are too focused on the rumors, and we are missing details, and a lot of those. What if the city lord called in a favor? He is a crafty one, and may just use it as an opportunity. He could have one, no? Maybe he is trying to use their name to make us back off until he builds up more strength. That? Ivessa stiffened. It could be a favor, Cedric barked, for a fucking urchin. Would he risk something so valuable for something banal like this? Well, Garrick squeezed the glass, shattering it, and with the sharp sound he interrupted them. "Let's forget about the kid. I doubt this is about that nobody anyway." "That's the issue, isn't it?" Ivessa sighed, pinching her nose, squeezing her eyes shut. "There is no body." "There isn't," Cedric acknowledged, making people start to whisper, arriving back at where they were an hour before. Was it really about an urchin? Was it Silverhaven? They were back to square one. The body could have been carried away by the river, Maris tried. There was a strong storm that day. Or an animal could have eaten it, Ivessa added. "Everyone listen," Garrick said, sitting up now, his voice becoming much firmer. "We don't speak of Silverhaven from now on. Understood? We don't say a word. Anyone caught even whispering the letter S is out. I don't care if it's your cousin or your whore. If they so much as joke about this mark, we gut them and hang their body in the square. If it is a warning, we got it, and we will not touch it." "And the girl?" Ivessa asked carefully. "If she is alive—" "She's gone," Garrick interrupted, not wanting to go in circles one more time. "I said, drop the topic. We couldn't find her body, and if she was alive and involved, Silverhaven wouldn't have done anything." Of course, everyone knew that that was a stretch at best. Garrick simply had no solution to the problem and was doing the best next thing, ignoring it until it goes away. Because if it is Silverhaven, they can do nothing. If it isn't, it will come up again later. Still, he also knew this was a bad solution, but there was nothing else he could do. Standing up and turning his back to the table, staring out the narrow window behind his chair, he continued, "Taking over a city is never easy." He muttered after a minute of silence and turned slowly, his eyes sharper than at the start of the meeting. "This is about the control of the city. We can't falter, but we need to be more careful. We will handle this as if it were done by the city lord." "What should we do?" Maris asked. "We will slow down a little. We need to reassess what we know of the resources Valcroft has at hand. If he has more connections he can use, even ones that link him to Silverhaven. We will first need to counter those. He went after our minions. We can do the same in turn. We will make a list of people he has and eliminate them, one by one." "There is a chance," Rickard spoke suddenly, looking at the middle of the table as if he was not even here, but out somewhere, traveling the land, "that this is a clear message." "Of what?" Garrick asked. "That Silverhaven doesn't want the city to destabilize. If anyone knows we are aiming to take over, it's them," he explained, still unblinking, still watching the middle of the desk. "It could be that they are saying that we should not disturb the status quo. That's why we go after Valcroft's little minions." Garrick smiled a little. "We will use our own little goons to do the dirty work. If we lose them, it is not a big deal, because if it is Silverhaven warning us, they will retaliate against them, not against us. They respect the rules of the big game of power. Then we will know for sure and stop before it escalates." Of course, there was no guarantee, and Garrick knew that, but they were already rolling down the hill, and there was nothing that could stop their carriage anymore. Chapter 60, Crazy Tips. The third-floor chamber of Silverhaven was quiet and serene, ignoring the outside world and its chaos. The only sound that broke that serenity was the faint ticking of a clock hidden somewhere behind the curtains, pulled away, windows opened to let in the fresh air. The owner of Silverhaven, Celine, stood beside a long oak table that was covered in an array of objects awaiting her judgment, from which the cheapest one had a worth more than Veron and Sons, put together and going back 3 generations. Yet, for the uninitiated eyes, they were just trinkets. A lacquered box inlaid with mother of pearl, or a narrow rapier with an iridescent guard, and a collection of gemstones set into a velvet-lined case. Beautiful, yes, but worth that much? Yes. Those who knew what they were, certainly they did. Her fingers, which were now gloved in pristine white silk, carefully traced the fine engraving along the rapier's hilt before shifting the balance in her hand. Holding it like an expert, she noticed that it was too light to be an accurate dueling weapon, more like an ornamental, perhaps ceremonial piece. It was non-magical, but still elven crafted, which made it a desirable object, but not something she had any more interest in after realizing it was worthless in actual battle. So, with a soft sigh, she set it aside without a word, moving next to the gemstones. A single glance told her half the stones were genuine, the rest were clever fakes. Most likely dwarven made, as no human hands could mimic them so well. Chuckling to herself, she picked out a flawed sapphire, held it to the light, and pressed down with his fingers, filling the room with a cracking sound. Such a weak fake. Clever, but not clever enough. She just put the cracked crystal down when the door behind her opened, barely making any noise as a pair of feet hurried in. Selene didn't look up, not until the familiar scent of spiced tea drifted toward her, already identifying the girl the moment the doorknob had been turned. "You are late," she murmured, examining the genuine ruby with a flame-like pattern inside of it. The maid-looking girl, the same ash-blonde, green-eyed beast folk who had greeted Auriel days earlier, bowed as she crossed the room, looking ashamed of herself. Arriving next to her, she bowed 3 more times, her tray being balanced effortlessly in her hands. Finishing by bending her head in shame, she set the tray upon the corner of the table, offering a cup to her mistress. "My apologies, Lady Selene," she said softly. "There was news." "I'm not angry." Selene finally glanced her way, touching her fingers as she took the cup and gently blew on it before taking a sip. "Go on." The maid hesitated just long enough for Selene to get interested. As usually, she wouldn't flinch, not even if someone threw a corpse onto their doorstep. So, the news had to implicate Silverhaven in some way. How interesting. 2 killings had happened in the city, both in the last 2 days. Men of little value to most. One had the name Tonal Vec, who had been a frequent contract holder for the Crimson Ledger. The other was Garin Vase, who is even less significant, a local thug. Both were found in their homes. "I don't care about the who's and why's, my dear." Selene's tone didn't change as she spoke, sipping on her tea. "You don't bring me market killings unless they step into our circle." "Chop chop, my lovely little girl. Why are you interested in these?" The maid's cat-like ears twitched, feeling a bit nervous. "They shared one detail, my lady. Both bore a carved letter S in the flesh." "And—" Selene's hand shifted a little, caressing the edge of her cup, smiling at her maid, who felt like she was watching a fox on the hunt. "And the city assumes—" "That it is us," the maid replied quickly, knowing that her mistress had already put 2 and 2 together. "The story is already everywhere. It is getting round in the taverns, traded for coin in the upper markets, and even went as far as the ledger and the city lord. The mark is being read as Silverhaven, my lady, and by extension, the killings are taken as our work, that we have sent a message to the ledger." Selene's lips curved faintly, putting down her empty cup. Of course. They would think that. The maid stepped closer, lowering her voice even further, nervous to speak, but she had to. "We know who it truly is. The marks are not for Silverhaven at all. That is obvious. They are for that man's chosen name, Shade. The boy named Auriel, who visited us with the token, the one you granted the potion to save his little orphan girl." "I know. I don't forget a face." Selene chuckled quietly, unbothered and surprising her maid with how nonchalant she was. "Our recent guest is playing in the mud after all. Things like this are bound to happen. Ha! I miss those days." "My lady, if the ledger believes we have moved against them, they may—" "May what?" Selene interrupted, her voice turning much firmer, gazing into her maid's eyes, making her step back a little. "Throw their weight at our doors. They won't, not until they want to die. Garrick Holvar values his skin more than his pride, and his pride is considerable. Even I couldn't measure it well, He will stew in his paranoia and do nothing because his spine was sold to the devil in exchange for being a local little tyrant. Pathetic. The ledger will tighten its ranks, silence its gossip, and spend weeks trying to confirm what they already fear. And they will fail to do so. A bunch of lower life forms they are." Yes, my lady." The maid stuttered, feeling that the room was suddenly a few degrees colder. "Still, it is our name being used. The mark could draw unwanted attention to us from others, who might think we broke the rules and interfered with local scuffles. Some will believe it is you, no matter the truth. Should we not correct the perception, or punish the man for using it?" You are worrying too much, Celine laughed. A warm and musical sound rang out, plucking a string that immediately vanquished the cold the young maid was feeling. Punish him for frightening the ledger. Can you prove his intention was to frame us? No. Then why should we punish him? For killing men too far beneath my notice to even warrant a glance from me. Because he sullied the name Silverhaven, she answered firmly. It is an affront to our reputation. My dear, no, it isn't. Celine sighed, shaking her head. Silverhaven does not involve itself in alleyway squabbles. That's our rule. The moment we start defending our name against street gossip, we diminish it and give power to the rumors. Are we actually trying to cover something? And, in the first place, who said it was us? Not we, not nobody from our ranks. They drew that conclusion. That is their problem. But correcting, children make trouble, but they are not our children. Celine waved a hand, ending the discourse, while her gloved hand swept over the table, drawing the maid's attention to the items there. This, Selina said, is where Silverhaven's time is spent, not with the dregs. We weigh the treasures they bring forth for us and not their petty grudges. We deal in artifacts, knowledge, and favors. Do you think we are similar to the Crimson Ledger or some city lord? Their kind come and go. They are an industrious pack of jackals, I'll grant them that, but they are still jackals, snapping and yapping over scraps. They are beneath my feet, only good to lick my boots. Let them snarl at a shadow for a while, and don't you ever dare bring outside filth into my palace of serenity. Understood? She asked, and her voice was accompanied by a blast of cold air. Perfectly, my lady. The maid bowed deeply, sniffing a little, almost crying, but she couldn't help but ask softly, even if it draws danger to Auriel. What did I just say? Celine glanced out the tall window, becoming patient again, smiling. If it does, then it will temper him. Or kill him. Either outcome is his own affair, not ours. He came to me with nothing but a token and a need, and I chose to grant it. That debt I owed is paid. The rest of his story is his to write, or end, and I have nothing else to do with it. Stop paying attention to the outside world and keep focusing inwards, or you will never break through. I understand, the maid muttered, keeping her head bowed. Good. Now come. I will let you examine the rest of these gemstones. Tell me which is fake and which is real. The door still creaked like a dying goat when I opened it, and I don't know why I expected it to stop. This place was falling apart as is. I mean, the old crazy alchemist's home, where I was currently standing, trying not to pinch my nose against the smell. Brannick, I called out, poking my head into the crooked shack I'd visited a few days earlier. Honestly, looking at it, it was slanted slightly to the left now, like it had lost an argument with gravity and was about to crash at any moment. I tried looking in through the herb-covered windows, but they were fogged with condensation and something that looked suspiciously like a dried snoot. Or whatever. Yuck. Back again, boy? Came a voice from under what I initially mistook for a pile of wet carpets. What? You already killed yourself trying to make deathwort tea? I hate dealing with ghosts. Making what? No, I didn't brew anything. What are you even saying? I stepped inside, ducking under a string of hanging bulbs, but I wasn't here alone this time. Lyra followed behind me, hesitating just long enough to question every decision she'd made that led to this point. I wasn't blaming her for it. This place was like a devil's trash bin. Oh, I see. So you live... Good. Brannick rose from the heap of junk he was lost in, his eyes narrowing as they fell on Lyra. You brought a woman into my sanctuary? He asked accusingly. Is there some kind of superstition against women? Come on. She's not just a woman. I warned him, my eyes narrowing. This is Lyra, I said as she gave a polite nod, clearly trying not to inhale too deeply inside the shop. The food you ate? The thing you asked for. She made it. So be respectful. Oh? Brannick scratched something beneath his robes, and I didn't want to know what. My apologies, fine lady of the baking heaven of pastries. I love tasting the pudding of budding bumming. Excuse me? Lyra raised an eyebrow. Just drop it. He is not fully there. I snorted, wanting to slap the man. That'll do too, he said, completely ignoring the tone of our discussion. I know why you brought her. Follow me. Carefully. Don't touch the basilisk fennel. It's moody during frost months. I'm pretty sure that's parsley, I muttered, walking past the plant he pointed at. But, still, I did as he asked. Parsley is what they want you to think, Brannick replied without turning. We stepped past cluttered tables and drying herbs that were strung up like festival bouquets, following the madman to a rickety side room that might once have been a pantry. The air here was thicker, warmer, and much more earthy. There was a cauldron bubbling over a stone circle, and half a dozen jars labelled things like Dragon's Whimper, Wife's Last Breath, and The Essence of Maybe. So, Brannick said, spinning around and nearly knocking over a shelf with his elbow, you want to make potions? We want to start learning, yes, I corrected. We've got a decent manual and now even the ingredients, but no experience. You want basics? Brannick's eyes lit up in a dangerous way that I would call unhinged. Beginners. Novices. Yes, yes. That means you'll want to ruin something at least 12 times before it works. Preferably something expensive. The joy of losing your savings and falling into debt, chased by loan sharks until you must fake your death and move to a different city. We were hoping to skip that step. That is why we are here. Lyra cleared her throat, looking at me helplessly. We were hoping to avoid ruining anything. Ha! Brannick slapped a scroll he took out from under his clothes. That's like hoping to learn dancing by watching chairs sitting in the rain. You must ruin something, girl. A dozen things, in fact. You must burn the sugar, scorch the milk, and turn apples to ash and carrots to foam. Then you will begin to understand. I gave her a look. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. I'm starting to agree, she murmured, her eyes scanning the room. Ignoring us, Brannick hobbled toward a small bench stacked with tools and mortar bowls. Thinking, in the end, he picked up a battered wooden spoon and held it aloft like it was sacred. You cook? He asked. Bake, Lyra said cautiously, as we had just mentioned who she was. This old man was dangerously senile. Yes, yes, but cooking and baking are like farting and pissing. No, it's not, I moaned, but Brannick still ignored me. Then you know. That cooking is a ritual. Sequence, fire, temper, timing. A dish is not a dish until it makes you salivate, yes? I mean, Lyra hesitated, then slowly nodded. Yes. Kind of. You get a feel for it. Same, he barked, actually sounding like some kind of dog. Potion making is no different. Every brew has its required heat, the order of ingredients. It is art, like pissing your name into the snow. I couldn't say anything by then. Really. So, Brannick ignored us anyway, continuing, your first task is not to measure ingredients. That's wrong. The guild will tell you to measure. Bah, guild cooks with rulers and pisses in cups. Real potion work is smelly. Done by sound and taste, if you're brave and don't mind occasional paralysis. You must smell the difference because no ingredient is the same. If the stalk is greener only by a fragment of what your precious book says, the recipe is already different. Follow those steps and fail. No, you follow your nose, he added, blowing a fucking giant snot to the ground all of a sudden, taking a deep breath after, then you will cook up something good. See? Lyra stammered, taking a step back, wanting to hide behind me, though I could see the spark in her eyes now. Brannick's sociopathic speech probably had some nuggets of truth in it. So, how do we begin? I asked. You need a test base, Brannick declared, beginning to rummage through jars that probably hadn't been washed in decades. You don't throw fireberries into spirit milk and hope for the best. You start with something mundane. Practice, he said, shoving a cracked clay bowl into Lyra's hands. Burdock root mash. Start with that. Good for women's hands. Use it. Watch how it reacts. To what? I asked. Whatever you've got. He waved me off. Try dew spice. Put it in first, then try boiled rat tongue. Try your own blood if you want. No thanks. I flinched. Coward, he sniffed. Interesting. Lyra gently rubbed the inside of the bowl with her fingertip, examining the filth inside. This is like starter dough. The smell almost matches too, she added, making me surprised how she was looking at the goo on her fingers. Yes, Brannick barked again, looking at her. Finally, someone speaks my language. See, boy, this is why you brought her. Isn't that what I said at the start? I muttered. I'm so lost. She's smarter than you, so it is not a surprise, he chuckled. She's softer too. Brannick leaned in, looking oddly serious, while speaking to Lyra. Do not rush potion-making, girl. Rushed potions explode. They poison. They pretend to work. Then one day you sneeze and your lungs turn to glass. Ugh, Lyra coughed, looking at me, worried. Charming. Let's see. Brannick suddenly turned back to the shelves. You'll need a stirrer. Wood, not metal. The materials you collected hate metal, and it ruins the reactivity. Always use the tools you need for your work, and no measuring spoons. Not until you understand the pinch. Pinch is sacred, girl. Pinch is memory. Measure ruins the product. You are an artist, not a factory worker. After Brannick gave her a few more instruments, with a slight lopsided grin, he continued, You'll do fine, girl. You've got good eyes. Any final advice? I asked, stepping beside her before he would think to touch her with those filthy hands. Yes, he nodded. Keep your space clean. Not pristine, but clean. Like you? I snorted, unable to hold it back. This is the cleanest shop in the whole city, he declared, looking at me like I was an idiot. Here is everything in harmony. I think I get what he means. Lyra nodded, looking at me and whispering, He means that the surfaces here are keeping the ingredients in their perfect shape, right until he uses them. I think by clean, he means something different than we think of. Please don't tell me that our bakery will turn into a pigsty. It won't, she giggled, tiptoeing and giving a peck on the side of my cheeks. Good, I muttered, but Brannick also began speaking. Now go, and bring buns next time for this lesson. No cinnamon. I'm bored with cinnamon. Surprise me, but make it sweet like a peach. Wait, you said, I started. Surprise me, he shouted, shooing us with both hands. Out, go, your breaths are ruining my plants. I'm so lost, I muttered, standing outside again, glancing at Lyra, holding the tools Brannick gave her. I don't know, she murmured, looking down at the dirty-looking mortar and whatnot. I think I get it.